Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. Today, I'm joined by familiar face, Edgar Blazona of Maderight. Edgar, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's nice to see you again, for sure.
Yeah, and to the listeners out there, if you haven't heard Edgar's story before, make sure to go and listen before you listen to this one because it kind of will transition nicely. But Edgar was a previous guest, I believe, in 2021. Um, but exciting kind of transitions I want to cover here, Edgar. So a new company made right. Kind of talk us through the transition away from Benchmade Modern, which is luxury furniture, kind of the result of that and when that happened.
Yeah. Well, it's been quite a ride, and I'll start by saying, I a long time ago I owned a furniture brand called True Modern, and I kind of
Hmm.
pivoted that brand. It was a wholesale brand. I pivoted that brand into Benchmade Modern. And you and I spent some good time covering that and all the ups and downs, and really just to kind of touch on that, it was a startup. I raised venture capital. I was really pushing the envelope in all these different ways. I was trying to make this sofa buying experience fun
Mm.
and not suck. And I've said that before, and probably even said it to you. And so I built this like disruptor, and that was my
Yeah.
goal. Growing up in the Bay Area, where you're kind of bred. If you're in this era right now, you're bred like build a disruptor, go out, raise money,
Yeah.
break stuff, all those things, and then disrupt an industry, and then let them buy you. And
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting part of this story, and I don't think people really think that through, right?
Mm.
Build a disruptor, go disrupt them, let them buy you, and then go work for them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Someone that you've been like kind of pressing their buttons for the last few years to get noticed and to break their thing
Yeah.
and show up, and then on top of that, then go work for them. And so, that's where the story sort of changes a bit, right?
Yeah.
You have to go work for this beast that you've been pushing on. Try to make friends, right? Try
Yeah.
to, and then lift them up. That's the whole purpose, right?
Mm.
Change their ways.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out in the furniture industry, it's really hard to change their ways, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
For sure.
that's what they are. They're old school. They built this business this one way, and what do you know, kind of thing. And well,
Mhm.
I've been in the furniture business since I dropped out of high school. I know a thing or
Yep.
two. I don't know what it's like to run a $500 million sofa business. I don't, right? So they
Yeah.
got that on me. But I do know what's happening in the future, right? I'm
Mm.
one of the people pushing the future.
For sure.
And so that's a tough thing to do. And so then you come along and you build this business, and then suddenly, for me, some changes at the top, right? They
Yeah.
bring in a new CEO. The private equity, isn't as happy as they were before. We go through COVID. We're on all these crazy rides. We go through COVID, and some big changes happened. And
Yeah.
frankly, I lost control of the design, the
Mm.
creative in the brand. I lost control of the customer experience, and
Mm.
that's where things started to turn and really make a change.
Yeah, if you can kind of dive into at the point of your kind of departure, the state of Benchmade Modern, um, for example, like how many collections, what did like success look like for Benchmade Modern at that point overall? Can you kind of paint that picture?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really talk numbers. I don't really want to get in trouble, for that. But what I can say is that Benchmade Modern was a top three direct to consumer sofa brand, and we sold that brand to American Leather, which is a mega company,
Yeah.
and the business was doing pretty well. Frankly, at my point when I left, I had achieved all my goals. Everything I kind of signed up for, I had achieved, and it really was time for me to go. And I left the business in pretty good shape. And it was But they wanted to make some directional changes, and so that left me in a really kind of weird position. What do I do, right? You
Yeah.
know, I'm like, I dropped out of high school and started a furniture brand. So like, this is what I do. I didn't just pick some dumb problem and go to fix it. I truly went out and solved a problem in my industry.
Mm.
And so Benchmade was doing pretty well. And now, after my non-compete, I had to wait
Mm.
a year and some change, whatever, to start a new thing in furniture and in sofas. And now I am back to building, a new sofa brand, almost picking up where I left off. All those
Yeah.
things that told me, I don't know if we want to do that. This has changed a bit. Those kind of things. I
Yeah.
have now been able to pick up, and kind of, start again and do all the things that I never quite finished.
Yeah, for sure. And for the listeners out there, kind of paint that picture from coming from Benchmade and then also developing your new brand. What does this archetype kind of look like? And is it really kind of a blueprint of what you built with Benchmade, kind of like the customability behind everything? What does that look? And what was your vision with launching?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that's a question that I ask myself. Like, what makes it different, right?
Yeah.
And what makes it different today? What makes it, you know, what are the things that I truly never got to change, right? What are the things that I truly never got to fix? And so some of that is, Benchmade was built on this really custom. Like, we started with 1 inch increments. We started
Yeah.
with super custom, made in 24 hours. We learned that people didn't want to buy a sofa made in 24 hours, right?
Mm.
It couldn't be good enough. The quality must be bad if you can do it that quickly. Well, that's not the case, but
Yeah.
that's how the customer presumes that. And so with Made Right, I chose to take a different approach, right? I went to I went to this, the big furniture extravaganza every year is in North Carolina. It's the Furniture Mart, right? And everyone flies in. And I'm walking around, there's booths everywhere and buildings everywhere with all this furniture. And I'm thinking, I don't fit in here. Like, these
Mm.
are not my people. I'm supposed to be here, but these aren't my people. Like, I need to lean in to me, right? I need to
Yeah.
lean into that little punk ass kid who grew up in San Francisco, painting on walls and skateboarding. I need to lean into that dude. I need to lean into what has shaped me here in California. And so that kind of transpired into, first of all, I need to make it right. Like,
Yeah.
and that kind of brought the brand name to me, right? Made Right. Like, I'm gonna make it right. And then
Yeah.
I started thinking, okay, how can I attach a feeling to it? And so we brought in the word California.
Mm.
And California, let's just be clear, because this is kind of, it's a slippery slope, this California thing. First of all, like, half of America hates California, number one. But maybe those aren't my customers, frankly. And number
Yeah.
two, when you think California, you might think Baywatch and palm trees, right? Well, we're not
Yeah.
talking Baywatch and palm trees. We're talking what California has brought to the rest of the world. We're talking design, we're talking, technology, we're talking food,
Mm.
we're talking this inspirational place that really is about, free thinking and what's next. And
Yeah.
so I embarked on making that the goal, right? That's
Mm.
that's our differentiator, right?
Yeah.
How do we make this brand legit, right?
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
that's important, and so instead of me just being like, oh yeah, I make custom sofas fast, no, we make custom sofas, we make them fast, we make them in all these shapes and sizes, but it's authentic. And I
Yeah.
think having that authentic brand story is really a valuable twist when you're
Mm.
out in the marketplace in a sea, frankly, of other furniture companies.
Yeah, for sure. And I know something you really built out with Benchmade was the customer service aspect behind that. I know you guys did white glove delivery. What does that look like now for Made Right. You said you kind of lost traction of the customer service and experience. What is that going to look like for Made Right now?
Yeah, well, we first of all, we're I don't know 3 4 months in, right? So
Yeah,
we are bringing. I mean, I'm working at warp speed, right? And I am bringing the hacks, right? How can
yeah,
I get as many collections? Like Benchmade has, I don't know, 15 collections, is thousands of SKUs. How do I do that in a short amount of time, right? And how do I do that customer experience, right? How do I fine tune it? So one of the things that I did was I set out to be the biggest, best swatch box on the market.
mm,
My swatches are twice the size of other brands.
yeah,
I think I'll start referring to them and all these other brands as other brands, right?
for sure.
Like I want to, I want to win, right? And so
Yeah,
what do I want to do? I want to bring these swatches to market that are bigger. They're bigger, they're better. There's more performance to them. I narrowed the playing field down. I don't send quite so many, and I put them in this big grand box and I ship out this big grand box. It costs a lot of money, but it's
yeah,
important for the customer to get that and to realize like, okay, they mean business.
certainly,
So
certainly.
that's one aspect. I think too, we've opened up the the window of trying to allow people, like, we're not just saying we're this big giant company. Right now we're not, right?
Yeah,
And let's lean in on that, right? Let's lean in on the aspects that we do great. What can we do great? We can add even more custom to it. So give us a
mm,
call. Like, call me, right? Get me on the phone. I'm still available right now, right? Get me
yeah,
on the customer service call and tell me you want it 2 inches bigger. Okay, most likely I'm going to say yes, because I've aligned myself with manufacturing that will allow for that kind of thing,
mm,
because I'm no longer trying to be the mega company. And I think
yeah,
that's an interesting play. And I think when we talk about that in that Bay Area, raise a lot of money, build a giant business, do we really need that? Like,
mm,
a great business is a corner hardware store. A great
yeah,
business is a guy who has 3 hardware stores. Why
exactly.
do I need to raise all this capital and build this big mega machine, to finally get pushed around and whatever? I've done that. So
Yeah,
one of the things I learned was, let's keep it small, let's keep it tight, and let's actually give the customer this amazing thing
mm,
that's like, here, let me hand this to you. Like, it's amazing.
for sure. Yeah, having like the domain with .ca and kind of California in the name, where do you see the potential of national coverage? Do you see it focused regionally in California, or how is that going to play out for you?
No, it's a great question, and because you know there's many California brands, right?
Yeah.
And how does it play out? Well, I'll tell you, our sales is like 40% California, 40% New York,
Mm,
and then 20% everywhere else.
yeah.
So the New York people like California. I like New York, right? We're not in a feud.
Yeah.
Right. And so having that California vibe, I don't think it hurts us.
Yeah. For
Right.
sure.
The name of the company is really Made Right. And we put CA on the back of it, to kind of reinforce it. And to be honest, maderight.com wasn't available. Right. And
Mm,
so, but I like the fact that I always wanted to create that California vibe. Right. And
yeah.
I knew, like, I'm from here, right? Our sofas are made from here. And
Yeah.
so why don't we lean in on that? And I think that's a really interesting point when you talk to other startup founders, is how do you lean in on the things that you have, right,
Mm,
that are
yeah.
already kind of built into your pie, versus trying to express who you are that really aren't kind of in your pie yet, and
Mm,
and I think that's the little difference that I'm trying to achieve, and I hope it comes through as
yeah.
legit and real.
For sure. Looking at Made Right and going into 2024, say a customer was to purchase a sofa. You mentioned you're not really focused on speedy construction, no 24 hours, but what does that look like delivery time wise?
Yeah.
Do you guys hold inventory? Will you hold inventory? Will it be
Yeah.
customized on the spot? What will that look like?
Yeah, we have a plan. Our plan is 12 collections in all the different shapes and sizes.
Mhm.
We are just offering big giant U-shaped sectionals. And we've got this new cushion package. I'll tell you about that after. I'm so excited about this cushion
Yeah.
package. But what we're doing to make sure that we can maintain that 2 week
Mm.
timeline, manufacturing timeline. We have to inventory legs. We have to inventory fabrics. We have to not show a bunch of fabrics that aren't available, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the trick. Why put up a bunch of fabrics that you don't have to sell?
Yeah.
Because people are coming to us that really want, they do want that speed. So it's not that I don't think speed is important. I do. And
Yeah.
in fact, there's a magic number and it's right below, 2 weeks. That's the magic number. And so that's where we're tracking to get back to, is
Mm.
that, okay, fine. I'll say it 10-day,
Yeah.
that's the number. That's the goal. And that's what people want to hear.
For sure. Love it. Getting into kind of the transition for, I mean, you have this long history in furniture, designer furniture. What does your relations look like with like manufacturers? Did that carry over, and how does that
Yeah,
play out
yeah,
now?
yeah. Yeah, no, so the interesting thing is that while I don't work for that big mega company anymore, everybody wants to work for me, right? Everyone
Yeah.
wants to work with me because it's legit, it's real, it's passion, it's all those things, right? And so all the relationships that I built long before. I mean, let's just remember, I didn't build this company to, to just like, oh, I'm going to be in the light switch business. Like
Yeah.
I built a business that I was already in. I already had all those relationships. I knew that company because of my relationships, right?
Yeah.
And so all that stuff is carrying through but I tell you, it is so humbling. It is it's been a while since I cared about two orders, right? Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I'm not talking about, I mean, I care about every order, but like we got two orders today. Like that's crazy, right?
I
I've been
love it.
doing, two orders with my eyes closed. It is so humbling to be kind of having these conversations with people. And I'm like, well, what's your marketing budget? Well, uh, it's like $5. It's not like
Yeah.
$500,000 like it used to be, And
Yeah.
so and so it's a real change in conversation. And the good news is it is my industry. And when I say we'll be there, I've done it 3 times. This will be my third time I've done it. So
Yeah.
um, everybody's getting in line and is excited to back again because of the passion. And
Mm.
and I'm not just some fly by night dude. Like you
Yeah.
Google me, there's tons of stuff on me, and it's the same story. And so now I'm picking that up, and here we go again. And I got a couple tricks up my sleeve, and I'm opening up a hybrid store again,
Mm.
right? Here we go again. I wasn't able to achieve that, and
Yeah.
so I'm not done with that. Like I am focused on small footprint online in store furniture buying experiences. And I'm not
Yeah.
letting that go. And so, I just leased the store. We'll be
Awesome.
open in a couple weeks, and back at it again, trying to fine tune that buying experience.
Mm. Amazing. I feel like a very important question, and listeners are probably wondering is when you transitioned, you mentioned venture capital for Benchmade and some of the other brands, but how is the funding looking for Maderight? Is it all bootstrapped? Any venture
Yeah,
capital? What's that like?
yeah, yeah. It is, and it's again another humbling experience, right? It's my
Yeah.
money, right? It's me not taking a salary. It's
Yeah.
me finding ways. I think that's what we need to remember. If I when I talk to other founders, I remind them like, okay, if you have a bazillion dollars, you can go out and hire the top New York, branding house. Then you can go hire the top not manufacturing guys, then the top marketing guys. And lo and behold, you will have a top notch business if you stick to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But you will have spent $100 million to get there, and your personal wealth and your personal equity and all that will be zero, right?
Yeah.
And most likely your business is going to go out of business. I mean,
Mm,
there are a couple well-known names in this industry, my old competitors, that are gone due
mm,
to that exact strategy. So hack your way, find your way, find your way without having to go and sign up for some contract that, you need mutual NDAs and all that. Find a
mm.
way to remember who you are as a startup founder.
Yeah,
Hack your way to the top.
for sure. Looking into, I know you guys just launched, but for these first products, what did kind of the concepts and design process R&D look like for you? Do you have any partners or are you consultants on that side? What does that look like?
Yeah, I got consultants all around the horn. You
Yeah,
can't you can't do this at this speed um, easily. I am a furniture
yeah,
designer myself, so I've got a one up on everybody, right? I all the stuff I'm designing, I'm pushing out. Looking in the market, I come from that. So
yeah,
I'm already dealing with my assortment, dealing with the product development. I've done product development for Pottery Barn, RH, some big brands, Walmart, Target. I know that game with my eyes closed, right? And
yeah,
so that comes very naturally. So the product assortment comes quickly. But the imagery, the imagery, the design of the feel of the site, all of that stuff, the emails. I mean, do you realize when you don't realize, I'll tell you, you don't, and you don't realize what it takes when you go to a site and put your name in their email newsletter. Like, the
yeah,
newsletter flows, the marketing flows around that are enormous, right?
yeah,
And the work that goes into that and the content that goes into that. Then you have things like I just introduced all of my sofas to be, you click on it and it changes the color, right? Oh, you want to see the leather, click
mm,
on the leather and you can see it. People
love it.
don't realize, they just think, like, why don't you have color changing sofas? It's a ton of money. I mean, it's
Yeah,
hundreds of thousands of dollars and it looks crappy, right? And so,
yeah,
and I can't, I'm not going to put $100,000 or $200,000 into a bunch of crappy images, right? That's just not, I don't have
for
that
sure.
to do that. And so how do we do it in a way? And so I had to find a way. And part of it is contractors and, but it's a bunch of people who are all, right there with it, trying to make a cool thing, because that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do it in such a short time.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know. I know you have a lot of consultants partners right now. I don't know if it's you're the sole employee right now, but from your point of view, what would be that crucial hire? Maybe the next 1 to 2 hires that gets you to the next step, such as
Yeah.
prior.
I think when I step out, I have always been one to employ people all over the world, right?
Mm,
And a lot of that looks like contractors, right? And if you go
yeah,
back to my old company, we only had 5 or 6 real employees. The rest of the team, which is a massive team, all sit in first of all, the team sat everywhere, but and this is pre-COVID, and I've been doing this since, I don't know, late 90s.
yeah,
And I think, and so, and you put together a group of contractors, and they all sit and they all kind of work together, and you weave them in together. You do need a few employees there to kind of handle
mm,
that.
yeah,
And part of that is creative, right? Excuse me.
mm,
How do you take that look and feel that I'm trying to convey and generate enough creative content to be either an online or an in-store thing? And
yeah,
me, we've talked. I mean, I have a lot of ideas, man. I got a lot of ideas. I'm sending texts all the time. I'm thinking about this. Just want to put this in your brain. Here's what I'm thinking. All those things, because while not all of them are great, there's a good portion of them that need to be acted on, and I can't do it
yeah,
all myself, right? And so,
yeah,
um, but I think you find people. I would even call these contractors kind of. I mean, they're employees.
yeah,
They want to be contractors. I don't know that I could hire them anyway.
yeah. No, for sure.
So to answer your question, I think you've got a creative content person who's
Hmm.
kind of managing me, frankly.
Yeah.
I'm the one driving this creative side of things. And I've got 1,000 things I want done. And so how does that person help drive that creative
Mm.
and then not put it all totally on me, because I just can't mentally function
Yeah.
at that level and at that speed. I think then we also, are going to have a customer service person, kind of handling the day to day beyond, just the other tricks that we have up our sleeve.
Yeah, for sure. Getting into kind of the future opportunities, maybe the next 5 years, do you see solely direct to consumer e-commerce, or do you see opportunities of retail? What does that look like?
No, direct to consumer is broken. I will say
Yeah.
it. It didn't work,
Yeah.
right? It's not working, right? What name a few that have worked? They haven't. There's no brand. Well, I'll say no, but there's very few brands that actually worked as a direct to consumer, right? Look at like Warby Parker. That's a great example. That was a brand. It was direct to consumer to begin with. They opened
Yeah.
a bunch of stores, and they're succeeding, right? Casper, right? They got stores. I mean, everybody has some sort of omni experience, and where I think omni retailing experience, and where I
Yeah.
think that the industry is headed is, we want a brick and mortar experience for the fun of it, not
Yeah.
to buy the product, right? Not to buy product, but just for fun. Like, I
Yeah.
want to go, like, come on, baby, let's go down to, Main Street and walk the shops and get an ice cream. And then, oh, check out that. Let's go into that glasses store. And oh, let me go check some piece of furniture. I don't even want furniture, but
Yeah.
it's that experience that brings you through, and you go in and out of the retail, vibe, and it's amazing. And so, and marketing costs have just become too expensive, and
Mm.
that's a good reason for direct to consumer to fall apart. It's
Yeah.
expensive. I mean,
Yeah.
my acquisition costs for a sofa is like six to $800.
Oh my gosh.
Like, that's a lot,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. No,
that's
that's a
what
great point. On the experience, I last year I was in Santa Monica quite a bit, and Third Street Promenade, where all those like shopping strips are. I used to go there just for fun. Like,
yes,
it's
yeah.
true.
Yeah, and especially now that COVID's, over, we were kind of flooding back, and it's how to make the numbers right.
Yeah.
So if you were just a retailer, like when I started, there was, furniture just retailers. They didn't even have websites. And then it's like, hello,
Yeah.
wake up. There's this thing called a website. And everyone was like trying to figure out, like, if you're a retailer, like, I'm Jonathan's sofa shop, right?
Yeah.
Like no one, like, at that point, it was like, well, there's this thing called the internet, and should I be on it and should I not? And well, it's very expensive, and everyone's like complaining about the online only guys, but the online only guys can't get any people to look at their site anyway. And so the retailer guy was winning, and and we're all kind of coming together trying to make up a business model.
Yeah.
And I think having a blend of those is really important. And
Mm.
I think I still believe in disrupting some of the biggest retailers
Mm.
on the market, right? I
I
think
love it.
that's where it's at. You
Yeah.
know, not, Pottery Barn is so boring, who wants to shop at Pottery Barn? Is boring. So let's go after them. Let's crush them with newness, right?
I love
I
it.
think I think that that's where I'm headed, and it might take me a little longer if I keep up with this bootstrap thing, but I would not bet on me, that's for sure.
Oh, for sure. Well, Edgar, just with so much vision in the future and kind of like so much history in the past, I'd love to intertwine as we conclude a piece of advice for the aspiring entrepreneurs, something you've learned, regret along the way. I feel like you have so much wisdom on this. What would that
Yeah,
be?
I'm gonna repeat probably the exact same thing. I'll do two. I'm gonna give you probably what I said the last time when you interviewed me, because this is my standard thing, and I think
Yeah.
this is so important, and I learned this the hard way. You know, it is a crazy roller coaster ride. A startup founder is a crazy roller coaster ride. Not everyone is cut out for it, and there
Mm.
are crazy highs and crazy lows. And at 1 minute, you're thinking, I am going to, run the world. I'm going to buy a plane tomorrow, right? And then the
Yeah.
next minute, after you've Googled, you know, private 747, you then have to then Google what happens if my phone gets turned off, right?
Mm,
Because you just lost the deal of your life, and so it's this roller coaster, and it breaks you, and it breaks
mm,
your family. It's very difficult to be in a family relationship with that, because it's too much of a ride for everybody. So
yeah.
really try to take all of that at a middle ground, like not too high and not too low. So that's what I say in general, and I probably said that to you in the past.
No, I
If
love
I
it.
were to give you a new one,
Mhm.
coming from the guy who is just being humbled with, a startup again from scratch, I would say it's back to finding hacks, right? And
Yeah.
and I want to make sure everyone understands that hack word. It's not that we're trying to, cheat our way, or it's or do it cheaply,
Mhm.
right? It's about finding tricks that
Mm,
is good enough for now, right? That you can capitalize on in a big badass way,
yeah.
right? I think that's the most valuable thing a startup founder. Look for those hacks. Like, don't just Google an app to do it.
Yeah.
Like, build a quarter of that app yourself, and
Mm,
stay up one night super late and build it, and find a way to give them, you know, solve what you need now for the
mm,
amount of people that you're actually solving a problem for.
yeah.
1 million people aren't coming to my site next week.
Yeah.
Like, so why do we need this backend that can handle 1 million people on my site next week? So find a way to make these tricks and solve those problems, on your own,
Mm.
without hiring big name companies. Do it yourself.
Well, Edgar, thank you so much. And to the listeners out there, make sure to check out Made Right at maderightca.com.